So far, no Republican senator has said no about Pete Hegseth confirmation, or really any of these other nominees. Of all of them, Tulsi Gabbard seems like the most imperiled, and I say that only because she's more in the category of Matt Gaetz, if you remember him, Trump's initial nominee for Attorney General. She's a former Democratic House member. She's kind of really despised by Democrats in Congress.
Welcome to the Debrief with the Washington Examiner. I'm Tiana Lowe Doescher, and I'm here with David Mark, one of our magazine editors. David, we want to talk today about the next election. I know you're so tired of having to wait for the next election. Right now, the Senate map for Republicans is very favorable. They currently have 53 Senate seats plus J.D. Vance as a swing vote. Democrats only have 47 Democrats plus the 2 independents that caucus with them. Going forward to this map, Democrats have to protect 2 seats that Donald Trump won outright in 2024. That's Gary Peters in Michigan, Jon Ossoff in Georgia.
Yeah, and Gary Peters is an interesting case because he has been the head of the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee the last 2 cycles. He had a really good year in 2022, not such a good year in 2024, and now he's up in a state that Donald Trump has won 2 out of 3 times that he's run for president. Down in Georgia, Jon Ossoff, freshman senator, is in an even tougher position. He won that seat narrowly in 2020 as part of the sweep the Democrats really had that year. He's been a Republican target from day one that he's been in the Senate. Made some strange moves lately, like voting against aid for Israel in its at least part of the aid package, weapons package for its defensive war against Hamas. So maybe put himself on the line there.
Yeah, and we don't see a lot of moderates either in the 5 Democrat incumbents who won states that Kamala Harris only won with a single-digit margin. That's Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire, Tina Smith in Minnesota, Mark Warner in Virginia, Cory Booker in New Jersey, and Ben Ray Lujan in New Mexico. Are any of those potential Republican pickups?
Well, we're so far off from 2026. The elections, we're still, 13, 21, 23, 24 months off, whatever, depending how you count it. But a lot can change. Those are the kind of seats Republicans certainly going to keep their eye on. They thought they had a decent chance in Virginia this past time, and Senator Mark Warner, has had some close races before. New Mexico is one that Republicans are keeping their eye on because there's border issues, big oil and gas constituency, all kinds of other issues. Some of these other states as well. So definitely a lot in the mix.
And while Republicans theoretically have an easier line of defense, everything coming up Trump in the confirmation battle, it's making Republican senators debate their state of play. Susan Collins is the only Republican defending a seat in a state that Harris won handily.
Right.
And luckily, Republicans are very lucky that she's going to run again because the day she doesn't is the day that seat turns blue.
Yeah.
Tom Tillis is in North Carolina. It's the only state with a Republican defending a Trump 1 vote margin or 1% margin.
Right.
But you have some controversial Senate nominees, RFK Jr. for HHS, Pete Hegseth for defense, who seems to be in a much better position now than he was even a week ago, as, multiple smear attempts have been thrown at the kitchen sink and fail. And also Tulsi Gabbard as DNI. Where do you think someone like Tillis would want to show that he is a defector? And where do you think someone like Susan Collins will just do it because she wants to vote against?
They're both in kind of a funny position because they've got to watch their respective right flanks in a potential primary in each state, but then just still be able to appeal to a broader electorate in the 2026 general election. Tillis has had some spats of independence from incoming president Donald Trump at times. Now it seems like he's moving more to the right. I haven't really heard him talk about opposing specific nominees. If anything, he's actually opposing Republican leadership on a year-end or early 2025 spending bill because it may not have disaster relief. That's a whole other conversation. Susan Collins is been in this position where she's deeply popular with the general electorate in Maine. Democrats have put up kind of second-tier candidates against her, but she may have to watch her right flank too. If you go up to the northern part of Maine, where she's actually from, that is Trump country. You see a lot of Trump flags up there. That single electoral district to really geek out here went for Trump again. So she's going to have to be careful what she does with a potential primary, but still be mindful for the general election.
And just to pivot to those cabinet debates right now that are ongoing, who is safe? Who do you think is most at risk? And has anything really change narrative-wise. Like, for instance, I think we could all say 2 weeks ago Pete Hegseth's nomination was in peril, and then everyone found out the truth, right? The ProPublica attempt to claim he wasn't actually accepted at West Point completely failed because he held on to an acceptance letter. And now RFK Jr. is back in the mix, and he's trying to make nice with everyone in the Senate side. What is the state of play here?
It's possible that some Republicans are holding their fire, say on Pete Hegseth, until the actual nomination hearings get started. They might still oppose him. They saw what happened to Senator Joni Ernst, Republican of Iowa, who stuck her head out with some criticism or even questions about it, and got, you might say, a brushback pitch about a primary from the state attorney general, and a Republican, and some other issues like that. But so far, no Republican senator has said no about Pete Hegseth confirmation, or really any of these other nominees. Of all of them, Tulsi Gabbard seems like the most imperiled, and I say that only because she's more in the category of Matt Gaetz, if you remember him, Trump's initial nominee for Attorney General. She's a former Democratic House member. She's kind of really despised by Democrats in Congress, by many of them at least. They don't really matter at this point, but there's some Republicans who are still kind of suspicious of her. She does have some, shall we say, unconventional views about former Syrian dictator Bashar Assad and some other national security issues. So if there's one that's, I think, most in jeopardy, it's hers, but we will see.
And one final question for you, David, because we know you're in touch and you hear the whisperings behind the Senate. What Democratic crossover votes do you think we could potentially see?
Yeah, RFK Jr. is an interesting one because you do have some rather liberal-leaning Democrats who are kind of want to take on, as they call it, big food, the big manufacturers, agribusiness, big companies. You go to the supermarket, we all know what the products are, lots of processed food. That's, again, a whole other debate about the merits of that, the economics of it. But Cory Booker, Democratic senator from New Jersey, is one who at least said he would have a meeting with RFK Jr. Interestingly, Bernie Sanders, independent Democratic Socialist senator from Vermont, has spoken at least openly about being willing to give RFK Jr. a shot at this. Whether they actually do it is another question, but there could be some others as well.
Well, thank you so much, David. You should check out all of David's reporting, and from the rest of the crew at the Washington Examiner, you can read that at washingtonexaminer.com. In the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.